Welcome to Positively Nerdy number 100, X-Men Battle of the Atom, Part 1. Welcome back to a brand new episode of Positively Nerdy and a new twist on an old favorite. I'm joined once again by the always talented and always present, it seems, on Positively Nerdy, Suine Hallock. Suine, how are you doing, buddy?
How's it going? I'm your squatter.
Well, you've definitely been on Positively Nerdy more than anyone else, whether you want to or not. And so it only seems fair that you're here serendipitously for episode 100. We've had this particular thing planned for a while now, and it just so happened that our first time doing it was episode 100.
Wow.
So, yeah, that's enough patting myself on the back. Anyway.
Self-high-five.
I really want to put that music into the podcast now. and maybe I will. Or just download some Nirvana, because it's the same thing.
Yeah.
We are here to discuss the latest X-Men crossover, because it seems like the X-Men are always doing crossovers, and we give them a pass, because that's what the X-Men do. And the latest is the Battle of the Atom. Now, Suine and I were gushing a while back about how awesome the X-Men comics are right now. They're just firing on all cylinders. We're both loving them. We're not... Between the two of us, we're reading, I think, all of them. Mm-hmm. And we decided, you know what, let's just dive into this event. You might have heard me complain recently about events in general. I'm not participating at all in Forever Evil and what's going on at DC, the whole Villain Month thing, which certainly freed up some cash to dive into these extra X-Men issues. I'm pretty lukewarm on Infinity at Marvel. But something about the Battle of the Atom I was super gun-ho for. Like I said, they're just... I think the X-Men titles are just firing on all cylinders right now. There's new life with the new status quo, and Brian Michael Bendis coming on, taking over the X-Men after finally giving up on the Avengers after 10-plus years. So new life has been breathed into the X-Men franchise, and Suine and I are loving every minute of it. So a la the Radical Corner of Turtle Comic Talk, Suine and I will be covering this event in its entirety. Suine, are you ready to dive into these?
I am.
All right. Now, Battle of the Atom is, again, it's a X-Men-wide crossover. It doesn't bleed into Avengers or Fantastic Four or anything else going on at Marvel, mostly because everything else at Marvel right now is Infinity-based, including the X-Men being involved in that. But they're busy. They've always been busy mutants. It's fine. Basically, the basic premise of Battle of the Atom, as we were teased, is that the current theme in Marvel right now is to really mess with the timeline. You have all new X-Men, which is the original 5 X-Men of the past in the present day. If you're reading Indestructible Hulk, you know he is jumping through time. If you're reading Spider-Man, the Superior Spider-Man, you know that the Spider-Man of Spider-Man 2099 just popped up. And then Uncanny Avengers is also got some Kang time travel craziness going on. Marvel's really messing with their time stream right now, and the X-Men are kind of front and center in it, and this is causing all sorts of problems, and our basic pitch was that the X-Men from the future have come back to the present to make sure the X-Men of the past go back to the past. Everybody confused already?
They're gonna take you back to the past. Oh, dear.
Love it.
Couldn't pass it up.
Love it. Oh, wow. Wow. Well done, sir. I'm going to take a second to recover from that. That's good. That was subtle, though, too. I'm not even going to say what it was. I wonder if everybody else is going to catch on to that. Well done. Wow. Well done. But yes, we are trying to send them back to the past, and they're angry about it. And it's this Battle of the Atom is going to start off with a kind of a opening chapter, a one-shot, the Alpha, if you want to call it that, and that's what we're going to start. It's written, as is this entire event, I do believe, by Brian Michael Bendis, art by Frank Cho for at least a little while until he fell behind, or I don't know what the plan was or why bring him on, because as gorgeous as his work is, he's not someone who should be on any sort of timely schedule. The rest of the issue, what's that?
I would have said he's got clerical skills.
He's got skills, just not anything that involves turning things in on time. The man is extremely talented. The rest of the issue is done by Stuart Immonen. Marte Garcia is our colorist, and Joe Caramanga is the letterer. This starts off with, who is this? Ileana? It is Ileana, yes.
Yep.
Kind of an open letter to Scott Summers, it looks like, that she has gone to the future. She's with Scott, but Professor Xavier's gone. The X-Men are split. This should be, new mutants are popping up. This should be a good time for mutants, and it's bad as it's been in a long time, and that's saying something for the X-Men. So she has to go see if the future they're fighting for is worth fighting for. So she actually travels to the future to see a bunch of semi-recognizable X-Men and a few surprises battling an army of Sentinels, big and small. One of those great Frank Cho splash pages we mentioned before. The guy's got talent, and you can maybe kind of see why he always falls behind. He doesn't pull any punches in his artwork, that's for sure.
Sure.
So then we kind of get a little bit of a recap page that lets us reminds everyone basically everything that's happened since Avengers vs. X-Men. Professor Xavier is dead. With him, might be his dream of peace between humans and mutants. We get everybody caught up that might have missed out that Wolverine and Cyclops have started their own groups, or Wolverine has just continued the other group, and Cyclops has started his own, would be more accurate. And that the X-Men of the past, the original 5 X-Men, are in the present day. Storm has a mohawk again. Very important stuff. I love Mohawk Storm, though.
Me too.
Yeah, yes, how awesome is that? And then we cut to the Jean Grey School for Higher Learning. So if you're coming into this event, and I know that people laugh at this, but there are people who get drawn into events, whether they want to or not. Maybe they haven't read X-Men. Jean Grey School for Higher Learning is the old Xavier Institute. There's just... actually, it was named that before Xavier died, wasn't it?
Yeah, before Xavier died, it was as a result of the big schism.
Schism.
That's
right.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, it was Wolverine basically left Utopia and established a school, and
Utopia. That's
like
right.
half of everybody with him, and
Yep. Everybody had to pick sides, basically.
Yep.
We get a scene in the cafeteria. Young Iceman, original Iceman, whatever you want to call him. I think we'll call him past Iceman. There we go. Wants to start a mutant food fight for some reason.
Tell me you don't hear Greg Sipes' voice when you hear him talk.
I don't, but I forever will now. It's definitely that kind of thing. I was actually just going to say I love what Bendis has done with past Bobby. I think he's a fantastic character. He's very much like the Bendis the Bobby Drake that Bendis had in Ultimate Spider-Man for a while.
Oh, yes.
When they kind of had the Spider-Man and their Amazing Friends vibe going on when Johnny and Bobby were living with Aunt May.
That was wonderful.
That was a great era in Ultimate Spider-Man. Cerebro goes off, lets them know they've got a new mutant in their midst, and boy, do they ever. It's basically Brigitte Nielsen meets Mother Russia from Kick-Ass 2.
Awesome.
With a whole lot of dragons, which are basically just physical manifestations of her thought process. Really, again, very Frank Cho type stuff going on here. You got cheesecake, beautiful women kind of thing, giant monsters. Not something you'd think would go well. Certainly not something you'd think would go well with Frank Cho style, but there you are. The X-Men arrive quickly in the Blackbird and leap into action. Great, just dynamic action. I love seeing the original X-Men. That's something I've been loving about All New X-Men, and I'm glad to see it happen here. Plenty of quips and one-liners and witty banter amidst the giant fighting. And this woman quickly realizes she is way out of her element. She's kind of always been a troublemaker, a criminal, and now she realizes that she has superpowers to boot. So she's this isn't a misunderstanding thing. She's out to do harm, but she has no idea how deep she is in. And out of nowhere, Sentinels attack. Suine, this is just one of those other X-Men things that how insanely awesome is it to see the Sentinels barge in?
Quite. Especially, ginormous ones.
Yes, gotta love the giant ones.
Yeah. Because we've seen the human-sized ones that were showed up. Remember the 6-player arcade game? That was where
Remember it? Oh my god! Of course I do. I actually have the port on my iPhone. And
Sentinels everywhere.
Yes.
But yeah, I like seeing the giant ones.
The giant ones are fantastic, and it makes me. I just love the giant ones. I think of the '90s cartoon.
Yes.
Even though it was a danger simulation, I fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. The opening issue of Joss Whedon's Astonishing X-Men.
Yeah.
When they were trying to gauge the students' reaction, and they had that happen. That was awesome. And they're coming in Days of Future Past, the next X-Men feature film. Giant Sentinels. So, yeah, very, very cool. Much better than that little cameo or whatever it was they gave us in number 3. And the original X-Men are not prepared for giant Sentinels at all. And they're doing their best with Kitty as their kind of coach, mentor. Another thing I'm loving about the current status quo of X-Men is Kitty's role. I think I just mentioned what I think Bendis is doing for Bobby. The way Bendis has crafted Kitty Pryde in all new X-Men, just phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. So the X-Men are getting it taken to them either because they're not listening or they're inexperienced or a little bit of both. And who should come to the rescue but present-day Cyclops and his uncanny X-Men, which we get a nice little logo if you were unaware. If you want to follow the exploits of present-day Cyclops, Magneto, Emma Frost, etc., you need to be reading Uncanny X-Men. The reveal of them coming in to save the day, Cyclops' new Object Blast. How you feel about that, Suine?
Awesome.
Isn't it, though? I love it.
Just blew the freaking Sentinel apart.
I just love that it's so, out of control now. He isn't even trying to maintain it. His new helmet's a little weird, but...
Well, it's because they're the ones who absorbed the Phoenix. Their powers are kind of wonky for folks who don't know.
Yep, that's very true. And that it would be Cyclops, Colossus, Illyana, Emma Frost, and Namor.
Yep.
Who we haven't seen, at least in the X-Men books I'm reading, we haven't seen him in a while. I know he's kind of embroiled in what's going on in Infinity. So
Magneto's powers also got wonkified too.
Oh, they did.
Yeah.
They did indeed. So there's, despite the fact these two groups do not get along, I kind of like seeing them be forced to get along. Both of them realize that there's a greater threat out there. So we get to see both teams in action, and once they start working together, they accomplish, exactly what they set out to do. Our Bridget Nielsen villain surrenders, realizes she's way in over her head, and everyone lets their guard down. Unfortunately, there's a Sentinel head still active, and he blasts Cyclops, blindsides him full on, in a great panel that's a wonderful homage to the Dark Phoenix saga, with Cyclops and Jean's roles reversed. And young Scott, past Scott, whatever we're calling him, is basically starts to die. Now, I don't know who this healer is. Is he a New Mutant?
Yeah.
Not to be confused with the New Mutants. But
yeah, he's one of the ones they recruited in, I think, Uncanny.
Yeah, well, he's part of present-day Cyclops' team.
Yeah, so I think that would be Uncanny, yeah.
And basically we get very blurry panels letting us know that something's going terribly wrong. All the characters are commenting on it. And present-day Cyclops has disappeared. And we find out that he's basically brings young Scott, original Scott, past Scott, whatever I'm supposed to be calling him, back to life. And when he heals past Scott, present-day Scott comes back as well. So he went a little Marty McFly on us, and everybody's freaking out, and now the stuff just got real. Because they realized that they're not supposed to be, reminded, I should say, that they're not supposed to be here. We're back at the Jean Grey School with the present-day X-Men telling the past X-Men, that's it, you're going back. We shouldn't have kept you here as long as we did, yada, yada, yada. Jean and Scott do not want to go back by any measure. Hank concedes it. Past Bobby, I think, is just kind of, well, now that you put Greg Sipes in my head, he's just going to go Mikey on it, and he'll do whatever needs to be done, I guess. And Kitty does not want to send them back either. She's become very attached, it's very clear, to the original X-Men. And just as Beast is getting ready to turn on the time machine, it turns itself on. And past Beast is like, did someone else turn it on? How would that happen? He's like, well, it works both ways. Is someone else coming through? and indeed someone else is coming through. And we get the X-Men of the future stepping through to stop them from making a terrible mistake, a disastrous one that will end our species. And some of these characters are recognizable, and some of them are not. We will get to the who's who of the future X-Men in the next issue. Suine, you read these? Did you think we had made a good decision after reading this first issue?
Indeed. Like, I would have been reading X-Men events anyway because I've loved them since the 90s. But yes, this is an exceptionally good one.
I right away. I mean, like I said, I've been loving what's going on in the X-Men. I love their status quo. X-Men for me is, again, like I think most guys our age, everybody was into the X-Men in the 90s, and maybe the next episode, we'll take some time out and talk about our X-Men past. But for me, it's kind of an ebb and flow. I get really into them for a while, and then something crazy happens, and I bail, and back and forth. And right now, it's crazy, but it's awesome. So the Battle of the Atom continues in All New X-Men number 16, which is Chapter 2 of Battle of the Atom, and this is all very clearly illustrated on the front cover of all these issues, which I am very, very grateful for. It's an old DC trick, actually. They used to be quite good about it in their events. Marvel, usually you don't get it on the front cover, though. This is pretty blatant and out there, maybe an effort to let fans know what they should be buying. But I appreciate it. The yellow border, not so much. but everything else about letting people know where this falls in the Battle of the Atom, I think is a terrific idea. So this one picks up, I believe, right where, as I open it, yes, right where we left, no, not where we left off. We cut to Cyclops' group, and they're basically studying footage. It's almost like a sports team looking at the footage of the game afterwards to figure out what they did or didn't do right. And they're trying to figure out what happened with present-day Cyclops and why he disappeared. Christopher, our healer, is really struggling with the concept that his power is to bring people back from the dead. And he even asked Cyclops at one point, is life always this crazy and you just don't even notice it anymore? Which I thought was pretty fantastic. We cut back to the Jean Grey School and the future X-Men not invading is the wrong word, but crashing in on our present-day X-Men and even our past X-Men. And you start to kind of piece together that we've got an old beast who has continued to mutate, apparently. We have a Zorn-esque character, very bizarre, female this time around. And I didn't realize it until he started talking, but we also have a Deadpool on this team.
Yeah.
And that's who we are exposed to immediately. The two Icemen, past and present, realized that these giant hulking white monster. I didn't see this until it's pointed out in dialogue that was a giant hulking version of Iceman, apparently.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be a rock slide.
Yeah, actually, rock slide was my first thought too, but it didn't quite look like him either. But mutations and everything doesn't quite look like Beast. But I didn't think it'd be Bobby, which was weird. And then we also get Xavier, who is Charles Xavier's grandson, apparently. And a lot of chatting back and forth. We also get old Kitty as part of this team. She gives Wolverine a big hug, which immediately begs the question, where is future Wolverine? If she's that excited to see Wolverine, where is future Wolverine? And the reunion gets broken up by Deadpool, hilariously. He also wants a hug and a kiss from Wolverine, which I thought was fantastic. The character that caught my eye immediately, and I've actually never read Runaways, full confession, sorry.
Me either.
But this is apparently Molly Hayes all grown up. Visually, I found her interesting from the get-go. This incredibly tall woman, bionic arm, do-rag, caught my eye right away, so apparently I need to go read some Runaways, because I like her already. More conversation, what's going on, why are you breaking the rule that we're already trying to fix when you said we shouldn't break it ever again, how bad could it be? And my first question with this, they were getting ready to send them back, and then they showed up to say, hey, you need to send them back. Now, I don't know if time travel technology is not an exact science. They couldn't exactly pick when they came back. Or if I'm reading a little bit into this and seeing a bit of a conspiracy. Suine, do you have any thoughts on that? Did anything like that pop into your head when you were reading this?
Honestly, that one kind of snuck past me because I was hung up on the Zorn-looking person.
Yeah, they...
I couldn't get past that. I had to flip back a couple times. Did they reveal that person and I wasn't reading right? Or
I was just going to say, I know I mentioned that she was there, and I went through all the other characters, but at this point in the issue, we don't know who this person is yet, and that's why I was kind of waiting. And it just really struck me as odd that they picked the moment they were about to send them back as the moment to come and interrupt them and say, hey, you need to send them back.
Good call. That's kind of funny.
Strike one against future X-Men. And then out of nowhere, Wolverine pops his claws. And future Deadpool and Iceman freak out. And we just get a very awesomely drawn. I love Stuart Immonen's artwork. He is the artist for the entire issue of All New X-Men number 16. A very sympathetic, not me, as he is then attacked by the future X-Men. And the past X-Men start fighting back, and there's this giant brawl breaks out. Wolverine finally regains himself, and listen, it wasn't me. I wasn't going to pop anyone. Someone took control of my arms, and there's only one person in this room who can do it. Where is Jean Grey? And both Jean Grey and Cyclops of the past are gone. We get an awesome little flashback to 2 minutes ago with everybody else in black and white and only Jean Grey and Beast, actually, at first, and then Cyclops in color as they're communicating telepathically while all the confusing introductions are going on. Basically saying, I don't like these people, I don't know why they're here, I don't trust them, I can't read their minds, this is all fishy to me, I'm getting out of here. And Beast basically blows her off, so she turns to Scott, saying we have to get out of here now. And then as soon as he agrees, that's when she makes Wolverine pop his claws and creates this giant, awesome diversion against Stuart Immonen's artwork. Absolutely fantastic. They take off in the Blackbird, even though they don't know how to fly it, and I love how they actually threw the lines in there that basically they don't know how to fly it, but it's okay. And then we get Xavier, as he's called, Charles Xavier's... I don't know why I said Xavier and then Xavier in the same sentence. Pronounce it differently 2 different times, but is it Xavier or Xavier?
I've always heard it pronounced Xavier when it comes to when it's related to Charles Xavier.
Just to emphasize the X, probably.
Yeah, because I in other places I've heard I thought it was Xavier like xylophone.
Yeah, I've always heard Xavier too. Like Xavier University is Xavier, not Xavier. But I would assume that it's Xavier just because it's the X-Men.
Yeah.
So anyway, a little aside. Xavier, Charles's grandson apparently, tells Beast that he chose wisely, letting on that he was in tune on everything that was going on there. We cut back to the Blackbird as they are discussing if they made the right choice, and basically why would they block my telepathy if they didn't have anything to hide. And they agree that alone is probably worth at least stalling for time and trying to get away. And this is interesting because I think it was revealed in All New X-Men. You're reading All New X-Men regularly, right? That Beast and Jean are kind of in love with each other now.
Yeah, because it turns out she found out Beast had always had a thing for her, and she decided
Beast's thoughts were too much to ignore.
Yeah.
And because of all the time travel in this, she went to past Bobby and called him out on it. And they're kind of a thing. Not really.
Yeah, kind of, sort of.
They're definitely destroying the Scott-Jean dynamic, which might be a catalyst for everything that's wrong and going on at the moment.
True enough.
And he basically confesses to her that how glad they are that they're together. And she's like, oh.
Yeah, sure.
kind of blew that one. Wolverine then tells everyone else that he'll go after them, and of course everybody else wants to come along. Just the dialogue and the banter between everyone I thought was fantastic. I also loved Deadpool blaming everyone but himself. And awesome. Wolverine calls Xavier out for blocking their thoughts, knowing full well that's why she took off, because she was scared. And they have a good cover for it. They're from the future, that their thoughts would need to be blocked. And then our female Zorn character finally opens her mouth and says, I warned you that would happen. and that she's in a delicate emotional state. So everybody kind of realizes now why they took off. And Rachel Summers pops up out of nowhere. That was a little bit weird to me. She was not in any of these panels or pages before that. And then all of a sudden she's there. That's not part of her powers, that is it?
Not exactly. But, yeah, she does just kind of come and go as she pleases, though.
She did that recently in an issue of All New X-Men, though. So,
true enough, yeah.
I suppose that's kind of her shtick. And she basically calls this Zorn person out right away. We need to know who you are. Wearing that mask is in terrible, terrible taste. And they take the mask off, and it is, dum-dum-dum, future Jean Grey. In a very gorgeous pose, thanks to Stuart Immonen, I might add. She basically lets them know that they are here to protect them and trust them, because she's Jean Grey, and she's an X-Men too. And then she kind of makes the rounds and says hello, and it's a very... If I'm going with this conspiracy theory, it's a very powerful distraction, if nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
Suine, I know you have some theories on seeing future Jean Grey.
Yeah, I think this is ultimately going to be because, as we know, whether we like it or not, the big two comic companies like a certain status quo that they don't ultimately deviate from for too incredibly long, although I got to say, this has been 10 years coming, 10 plus years. This is going to be their returning of Jean Grey to 616.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you after reading this issue. Of course, I'd kind of been thinking that we were headed in this direction as soon as young Jean Grey popped into the future in that first issue of All New X-Men. I knew they were kind of building to this. And I don't disagree with you about the status quos, which makes me sad in my heart because I'm really loving Superior Spider-Man right now, but at the same time it's like, how much longer is this going to last before Marvel freaks out and wants Peter Parker back in the costume? Probably sometime around the release of Spider-Man 2, or Amazing Spider-Man 2, which makes me sad. But anyway, if there's one character, though, that I'm all right with, it's Jean Grey, because that's what Phoenixes do.
Yep. As for matches.
And it's just so... it's kind of just part of who she is now. The death and the coming back, and I think fans... I don't know why, but something with Jean Grey, fans are much more tolerant of it. And I think it's because she's interesting dead and she's interesting alive, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Because when she's gone, it's still so much a part of what drives the X-Men comics. I mean, you look at, again, to bring up Astonishing X-Men again, which, because I bring it up because it's incredible, is Wolverine and Cyclops still fighting over her when she's dead and gone, and
exactly. I mean,
Emma's great line about I have the best body money can buy, and I'm still right below a corpse.
But yeah, I mean that's the thing about Jean Grey. She's so integral here, and this is going to be a big game changer because since she's such a part of Scott and Logan.
Yep, and now we have two of them.
Because that was one of my favorite parts of the fight between Scott and Logan. I think it was during Avengers versus X-Men, where they're kind of getting ready to throw down, and he's like, I'm the one she married. And that just caused Wolverine to go all right on out. So.
Yep. But I mean, there's a certain moment in Avengers vs. X-Men that if it comes to having to kill Cyclops, Wolverine will, because he already had done it to Jean.
Yeah.
And he loved Jean. There's no love lost between him and Cyclops, especially at that point. So that was kind of, for a little while in Avengers vs. X-Men, I thought maybe we were heading in that direction too.
Yeah.
So. Jean Grey, though, a phenomenally interesting and integral character to the X-Men, dead or alive, and now she's alive twice. So, needless to say, loving it. I was wrong. This is not all Brian Michael Bendis, because we now go on to X-Men number 5, which is Chapter 3 in Battle of the Atom, written by Brian Wood, art by David Lopez, Cam Smith inking, Laura Martin colorist, and Joe Caramagna, once again, the letterer. This picks up with right where we left off, them all kind of in the hangar trying to figure out where to go, what to do, how to track them down. And the Beasts, all three of them, reveal that they've been working on a brand new Blackbird, not the Blackbird, the Dove. It's basically the Blackbird except white and much more powerful. Xavier says that Jean's telepathy is still, underdeveloped. Obviously, we know that, and that he's still able to track her, even though she's closing herself off to him. She's leaving like a residual trail. A warp core signature. If you're a Star Trek fan, that's basically it's basically the same concept. There's always some device that lets them follow a person who they shouldn't be able to follow in the first place. And just more of the group dynamic, witty dialogue banter. Brian Wood, certainly a phenomenal writer in his own right, picking up right where Brian Michael Bendis left off with the dialogue and the interaction between the various groups. Terrific stuff. Jean and Grey, wow. Jean and Scott on the run, stealing clothes from clotheslines and motorcycles and everything else, doing everything they can to get away. More pursuit action. We get to see some future tech as Xavier and Jean / Zorn, whatever you want to call her, future Jean, bust out the future tech to try and track them down, their updated version of Cerebro. Cut back to the Jean Grey school, and those left behind in case they decide to double back is pretty much Rachel Summers, Kitty Pryde, and Bobby and Beast. They wanted some of the original X-Men around in case, again, they came back and that there'd be friendly faces. Great conversation between Kitty and Rachel. And Suine, I'm not reading this on a regular. X-Men is the all-female group, right?
Yep.
So it's nice that we get... I don't know, is Kitty in X-Men too? Is she pulling double duty?
Yep. One of the big things going on in X-Men right now is Rachel kind of challenging Storm's authority.
Ah, okay.
It's kind of hey, who died and made you God?
That makes this scene make even more sense.
Yeah.
Because the great back and forth between Rachel and Kitty as they basically, both of them talk about how it's not up to them to decide for the original X-Men. Rachel's like, I really can't complain because I'm from the future, and here I am. Kitty, again, has become quite attached to them and wants them to come or stay of their own volition. And now that I know that Rachel's kind of this, the Logan role, essentially, in this all-female team, at least in terms of challenging authority, that scene makes a lot more sense now. So thank you for educating me.
Oh, no worries.
Some more of Scott and Jean from the past, heading up the Pacific Coast Highway, talking about how they're going to need some help. Sooner or later that they're not going to be able to outrun them. They need some help. And Jean's like, I can think of someone, but you're not going to like it. And to be honest with you, obviously we'll get to who it is at the end of this issue. Totally didn't even see it coming. Should have. I'm an idiot, but didn't see it coming at all. More future Xavier and future Jean in the Dove. They find them basically because Jean has to shut down her shielding to contact the help, and so they are able to pinpoint right in on them. And I don't get this Jubilee thing. Can I ask you about that? Is that something going on in X-Men?
Oh yeah. Jubilee basically found this kid and decided to and adopted it as her own.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah, she didn't actually get pregnant. She's I'm assuming she's still. They say they're going to cover it eventually. They haven't yet, but she is still a vampire technically.
That's still a thing?
Technically, yeah. So I
had
don't know
no idea. Oh my gosh.
I don't know what their rules for vampirism are in Marvel, so I don't know if that means she's able to procreate or what, but like she does still, sit under an umbrella in the sun and stuff like that.
Huh. I had no idea that was still a thing, because she dumps this kid on Iceman and Beast from the past, like...
And she's like, I'm going to go take a nap, you deal with this.
Yeah, I had no idea what was going on there. I figured it was just one of those things that I was missing.
No, she found an orphan. She didn't actually get pregnant or anything.
And, alright, so then we cut back again to Scott and Jean on the run, and arguing the merits of who they just reached out to, whether or not it was the right thing to do. And Scott realized, hey, there's no more traffic, what's going on? And they realize that they are cut off from ahead and behind by different groups of the multiple X-Men. Rogue has shown up out of nowhere. The only thing I'm seeing Rogue in nowadays is Uncanny Avengers. I'm assuming she's part of the group in X-Men?
Yeah, I believe she's there at least part-time.
Okay. I mean, it's nothing new to see characters jumping back and forth between series. I just, being a female and X-Men is currently an all-female cast, I assume that she was in there at some measure, because I know she's not having a whole lot of fun with the the Uncanny Avengers group, being not being trusted and too often being made an example of in a bad way. So actually, I'm a few issues behind on Uncanny Avengers, but her and Thor basically just walked off the team last I knew. So Thor not getting along with them either. And they're about to start a fight, and do actually. Scott's very, very desperate to avoid being captured, as he put it. He's blasting Beast and the Dove and fighting back against anybody who would get in his way, and they are basically being closed in all around them. I got to tell you, I found the art really distracting in these panels, that anytime it wasn't a close-up, they didn't have faces. Did you know?
Yeah, I can see that.
Freaked me out. Like at least a little. I don't need detail, but at least a couple lines, like eyes, nose, something. It was really freaking me out. And otherwise, terrific artwork. But it just freaked me out. I didn't like it at all. And just as they're kind of closed in, they lost their motorcycle at this point. They've knocked a few X-Men down, but obviously not out. And they're closing them all in, and Storm says, "This really is for the best." And we get off-panel shout of, "Looks like the worst to me." And Rachel and Kitty pull up in, looks like a version of the Fantastic Car. I don't think I've ever seen this vehicle before. I'm not sure where they got it.
It's a neutrino car.
I was going to say, it's either the neutrinos or they stole it from Reed Richards. I'm not sure what's going on. And basically they fight back on behalf of Jean and Scott, against the rest of the X-Men that are there. Rachel communicating telepathically with Jean, basically saying, take the car and get lost. We'll hold them off. Kitty and Rachel defiantly standing up to the rest of the group, letting them know it's not up to them to decide. Cut to Xavier trying to reacquire them with Cerebro and saying that they're gone again. The Fantastic Car, call it for lack of anything better, I don't know what it's supposed to be, are heading to Utopia, which is abandoned after the events of Avengers vs. X-Men. But that's where they're going to meet, who they're going to meet. And it is Cyclops' from the present day's group of Uncanny X-Men. And that's where we get the to be continued, of course, in Uncanny X-Men number 12 in next week. Don't act so surprised, Scott, you called us, and that's out of our cliffhanger. Really should have seen that coming. I don't know why. For some reason, they're like, oh, I know who to reach out to, but you're not going to like it. Like, well, she doesn't know very many people in this time period. Who could she possibly be reaching out to? But for some reason, I guess I just wanted to be more, or someone like way out of left field. I was kind of just wanting and wishing in the wrong direction, I guess, is basically what was going on. So, fantastic, though. And, of course, we already know Angel had already defected in an earlier issue of All New X-Men. He is part of Scott's group of Uncanny X-Men, just to go with the, series titles labels. So an interesting dynamic there, and we're going to have a little bit of a X-Men versus X-Men, I'm sure more than once before this is all over.
Oh, yeah.
Suine, I got to tell you, I dropped a few hints when we were talking about this. I'm not so sure I trust these X-Men from the future.
I see what you mean.
The timing of them showing up when they did, the desire to not, reveal their hand fully, lots of shady things going on. I don't know. I'd be curious to know, like, all of these stories, not just X-Men, because we got plenty of that in X-Men, but Terminator, also anything that involves time travel. How often is the person coming back from the future saying, we've got to make it right, the good guys? How often do you think that happens?
I'd have to compile some data.
We'll have that for you next time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a
fair
question.
It mostly goes back to the timing issue. The telepaths in general, now you've got two of them, not always the most trustworthy individuals. They're at the very least, they can just manipulate it so they get what they want, even if it's not completely malevolent. It's not. They're not being truthful either. I think that's pretty apparent. Even if they're not evils per se, they're not being truthful. And then just again the timing of when they came back, and it's just. I don't know. It's just one of those things. I can't quite place it, but I think it's going to come down to one of those things, just like the Sentinels, where Wolverine's group and present-day Cyclops' group realize that there's a common threat that they need to stand against. And we've seen them work together before, so there's precedent. They could work together again if the opportunity arose. You guys know by now, if you listen to the Radical Corner of Turtle Comic Talk, where Suine and I do the same kind of thing, except with Turtle Comics, I am definitely one for rampant speculation.
Yeah. Well, I got two red flags that are in this issue that kind of make me a little wary, too.
Do tell.
She's kind of vague about it, but why does Jean have to put that mask back on?
Yeah.
She's kind of like, my powers have grown, so I'm just going to put this mask back on. But like, it just seems kind of vague to me. I mean, I could be reading too far into it. But then there's
that's what we do here. That's
yeah.
what we don't apologize for that.
But then there's page 4. What's up with Xavier popping pills?
It's part of the Cerebro enhancement, apparently.
Oh, okay. I must have missed that part.
Yeah, it's his Cerebro spike. Apparently, Cerebro's like Portal now.
Okay, I see.
And it amplifies his power, is how I took it.
Okay, that makes much more sense.
When I first read it, I thought Bobby was yawning at him talking.
Makes sense, too.
and I love, I actually, in that same panel, or same page now that I'm looking at it, I really love present-day Beast hitting on Molly. Is that her name? The Runaways chick?
Oh, shoot, I forgot.
I thought that was fantastic. I don't know why, it just made me smile. You would again, Beast. I love the dynamic too, and this is certainly like time travel paradox, but it's also just good X-Men comics that we have 3 different Beasts, all with the same and yet different opinions on time travel and how it should be used. Like, I shouldn't have brought him here, but I did. And now it's okay. Oh, I brought him here and it's a mistake, so now we need to send him back. And then the other Beast saying time travel's evil, but I time traveled here to tell you that. I'm not criticizing it. I think it's fantastic in a way that they all have the same opinion, and yet it's all radically, different. So just loved it. So this has been a lot of fun so far. A lot of, again, just playing off this wonderful status quo that's been set up since Avengers vs. X-Men, the launch of MarvelNOW. Maybe not everything from MarvelNOW was terrific, but when you shine it against that other company, there's really no comparison at the moment.
The distinguished competition.
There you go, the distinguished competition. Love it. Well done, Suine. And X-Men just continue to fire on all cylinders. I love these self-contained X-Men crossovers. I love it.
It's kind of the reason I think it's going well is I think things actually tend to thrive when they're not the focus of the universe.
Right.
Like, because you don't have to. They're not being gone over with his fine-toothed comb.
Right. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Fit it, make sure it fits in. It's like, no, this can just go at its own pace. Don't worry about Infinity or whatever else is going on.
Exactly. And I would agree with that. They're doing their own thing. I would think, and it's not. I mean, there is the opening chapter, and I think there is an ending chapter to this. So, if you're an X-Men fan, you're probably buying most, if not all, of these issues already. So, really, for an event, you're being asked to buy 2 more issues. That's a pretty cheap price to pay for an event. Mm-hmm. And I think it's 8 parts, so we're almost halfway through it, and already just loving it. So, Suine and I will be back in 2 weeks, when I get my next shipment from Discount Comic Book Service, and we get some more issues to talk about. Suine and I will be back to continue this because this is a lot of fun.
Yeah. And
Suine, it's always awesome to talk comics with you, be they Turtles or X-Men or whatever.
Yes, indeed.
Good times. Other than appearing on the Radical Corner of Turtle Comic Talk right here on Positively Nerdy, what else can folks find you doing around the internet these days, Suine?
Oh, I'm still at thehouseofhallock.com. It takes you to my YouTube channel where I look at toys and cats and whatever else.
What about cat toys?
Yes, actually one of my cats did review a toy on there.
That's right. I forgot about that. Oh, wow. I thought I was being a smartass. I totally forgot about that episode. That's right.
Yep. I kind of reviewed her, what was it, Eye of Wrestling?
Yeah, you got it at Heroes Con, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
The same vendor was there that was there the year you were with us.
Right.
Who was selling catnip toys that, of kind of fun themes, and we got a dozen this year.
Oh, wow.
We got each of the main 6 ponies. Got Batwoman, and a few others. I can't remember which. But
right. I remember. Yep, I remember that. Awesome. See, total digression, but yep, there are cat toy reviews. You could do a whole line of that. Cat toy reviews on House of Hallock as well. So, Suine, thank you for joining me. Not only this time, but you've been on Positively Nerdy quite a bit, my friend, and I just want to say thank you so much for all of your support and contribution to making Positively Nerdy what it is, man.
Oh, thank you for having me, and happy 100.
Thank you. It's very fair to say that I would not be here without the support of people like you and, of course, Pixel Dan, our friends over at What the Shell, Dylan, Mike, were part of Positively Nerdy #1. Chris Vint has been on the podcast more than a couple times. I have to shout out to the guys back at Pop Culture Network. Wouldn't be doing this if they hadn't given me that break so long ago back then. Guys like Rob Bass, just anybody who's kind of, encouraged this little habit of mine, hobby, whatever you want to call it. It's been a blast. Here's to 100 more. So that's the end of me patting myself on the back. And tune in next time. Self high five. Tune in next time for who knows what. But in the meantime, thank you for joining me. We'll see you guys next time. Celebrate comics. Celebrate your fandom.